This is NTA and you are on to Good Morning Nigeria, and to start our conversation, let's take these excerpts from yesterday's discussion on the subject matter.
I acknowledge the fact that there has been some marginal deceleration. But the reality is that inflation at 17.75%, that's headline inflation, is still very, very high. And even more worrisome is food inflation. I mean, you need to just go to the market, you need to talk to housewives.
What are the causes of inflation? Fundamentally, is only one: cost of production. Once the cost of production of any item increase, obviously the price of selling that item that has been produced will naturally increase. Of course, subject to a limitation of certain factors, like Dr. Muda has said, there is limitation as to the abilities of a producer to pass on the increase in cost of production.
We cannot underrate, one, the current security challenges in the country. The security challenges in the farming communities have adversely affected the output of food items in agricultural commodities. Activities of bandits, perhaps herders, farmers clashes, have chased farmers out of the farms. So most farms are not cultivated.
What is often overlooked is also the fact that inflation, in itself, also drives the exchange rate. The higher the inflation rate, the higher the exchange rate, transmitting through speculation. Because if you have high rate of inflation, then speculative activities in the forex market, tend to be high.
And now joining us to discuss the topic, first let me introduce here in our Abuja studio, Professor Ken Ife, Economic Policy Analyst. Good to have you join us on the program.
Thank you very much.
It's been a while.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Yeah.
I know. Thank you.
Okay, and also with us on the program today, that's from our Kaduna Network Center. Would like to welcome a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria. That's Professor Yushua Ango. Yushua Ango is to the left of your screen there. Professor Ango is the Dean, School of Postgraduate Studies and Professor of Finance and Entrepreneurship at the Kaduna State University. Of course, he's also a former banker. Yushua, delight to have you this morning. Yushua, delight to have you. All right.
It's my pleasure. Good morning, Nigeria.
We're having some delayed response from Kaduna Network Center. Our engineers will sort that out going forward. And then joining us from Lagos is Alhaji Aminu Gwadabe. Alhaji Aminu Gwadabe is Acting President, Association of Bureau de Change Operators of Nigeria. Alhaji Aminu, pleasure to have you after such a long time.
It's an happy Salah.
Okay, Alhaji Aminu Gwadabe, well, let's start the conversation with you. We started this yesterday from the excerpts that you must have listened to from our four guests who were with us on the program. We didn't quite have sufficient time to drill into the forex aspect of the topic, which is managing inflation and foreign exchange rate. I recall some years ago on Good Morning Nigeria, we had you when the exchange rate was pretty volatile. Today, it remains even more volatile. If you have 500 naira in your pocket, you're unlikely to be able to get $1 because I understand it's about 503, 504, or 505. Alhaji Aminu Gwadabe, what is happening to the naira vis-a-vis other currencies?
Money, thank you very much for this worrisome question. Definitely what we are experiencing in the market is not even devaluation. I think Naira is facing war of attrition. What I mean, erosion. The value of the currency is eroding as a result of many factors. Historically, our economy is being pervaded with rising external debt, which saw the introduction of so many measures to exchange rate stability, like structural adjustment program in the 80s and the 90s. And then we also have issues of confidence due to current security situation in the country. Our security situation is so bad that the confidence of even the Nigerians themselves is becoming very, very high in terms of lack of confidence. So this also is putting pressure in the Naira and the market, because a lot of people, like I had inflation statistics also by the former speakers. So a lot of people are worried. Instead of keeping their value in Naira, they are converting it. You see people that don't even need dollar, honestly speaking, coming to the market to make this demand. And sad enough, manufacturers also find it difficult to meet their obligations, both in the official and also unofficial market. And don't forget, we still have a backlog of the portfolio investors that is still not met. And as a result of the security situation, most of them are skeptical in continuing to stay in the economy. So we've been seeing exits of that. And the peak of it is the hot money in circulation. Nigeria is in fact, is it bleeding? I can call it bleeding. The economy is bleeding with hot money. Everywhere there is much Naira. And the problem is when you have much Naira, that Naira will continue to pursue any other foreign currency at whatever value. So these are some of the factors seriously impeding the exchange rate stability. However, as we continue to talk, we've been seeing some effort of the Central Bank of Nigeria in ensuring that there is stability. What matters a lot is not even the value, yes, 500 Naira, which is more or less a black market rate. This is an unofficial exchange rate. It's not official. The official exchange rate in the I&E window is about still 412, 410. Same with the real exchange window. So these are windows that have been created by the central bank to checkmate the black market rate. So, but it's so unfortunate that we find ourselves, even platforms like Aboki exchange rate, Aboki platform is the one used by media, is the one used by even the Nigerians, the one used by diasporas. So this is also a kind of misnomer that we've been trying to witness in the economy.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's now join Professor Yushau Ango in our Kaduna Network Center, who was also a banker. And in Nigeria, we use the dollar all around the world as a benchmark to determine how the economy of a country grows. So what is the current exchange rate officially in the banks, and how do you get it?
Typically, there are different ways in which any interested party can get funds from the banks. One, if you are importing for raw materials, for example, you can approach and bid for foreign exchange. But then basically, the rate that everybody talks about is largely the rate that I use in the black market, like the last speaker said. And that, in that case, you can also approach the banks for what is called business travel or personal travel allowances, which is allowed by the central bank. For business travels, you can get certain amount per annum or per quarter, and then for basic travel allowance, you can get, I think, $5,000 or so per quarter. So that is these are the various ways in which typically an average Nigerian can approach the banks. But you know, like the last speaker also said, there are different rates, you know, in the market. You know, there is the official rate, in which there is a buy rate and a sell rate. If you go to banks, you see that they will display that. And the large quantum of transactions that take place in terms of foreign exchange is actually in the official arena. Even though, of course, we know in terms of volume or number of activities, the parallel market or the black market, as it's so called, is more apparent. But unfortunately, like also the last speaker said, even the manufacturers who patronize banks, and I mean through the central bank various windows to purchase foreign exchange for various transactions, when they are fixing their prices for products or commodities, they will always refer to the black market rate. And of course, we have seen that sellers of even basic agri-commodities will refer to the exchange rate in the black market whenever they change their prices. So basically, we are an economy, unfortunately, that is so reliant on, because our test changed, you know, right from the 70s. So for that reason, we have been so reliant on imported goods,
95,340.
That we are benchmarking all the time our activities, including those that are taking place here locally, with the foreign exchange rate, especially the dollar. The dollar is not by accident that the dollar is paramount here, but because our economy relies heavily in terms of foreign exchange income earnings on the oil. Oil is benchmarked, the prices are benchmarked in dollars. Probably that is why, despite all the efforts to bring in other things, you know, including, for example, the agreements with China to go into an agreement whereby we can buy things directly from here and there, dollar is still paramount. But dollar is still the yardstick. Dollar is still what everybody is talking about. So I believe that is part of the reason why we have situations as we have. Largely, we have problem of test. We have problem of test. Test in all forms, you know, in terms of what we use locally, and in terms of even going for studies abroad. You know, quite a number of Nigerians, you know, are abroad. They need foreign exchange to survive, you know. You need foreign exchange to pay for their school fees. We are not able to plan that aspect and many other aspects, including medical expenses and things like that. So we are so reliant on foreign sources, or rather services and products, that if care is not taken, except we generate enough foreign income also, you know, to compensate for that, this situation will continue in the foreseeable future.
Well, Professor Yushau Ango, I just wanted to clarify this before we bring in Professor Ken Ife. Why is there so much obsession with the parallel market rate? As you have indicated, and as we do know, the bulk of transactions take place through the official window, the IIA window, where the bulk of the money, you know, is sourced by persons who, of course, engaged in legitimate business. But even everyone else now will reference the parallel rate rather than the official window, which is about 400 and something. Everywhere you go, if you tell anybody now that the exchange rate is 410, they will ask you, okay, if you bring the dollar, let me be sure that it is genuine, and I will give you 410. Nobody will give you a cent.
Largely, I think, well, I don't know. Maybe it's a way of justifying for everybody that is fixing prices. You know, they want to maximize every opportunity. You go to somebody, a shop, for example, you buy a packet of, a soap, a certain price, and before you come back in the afternoon or in the evening, the price will have changed, and they will tell you foreign exchange, and nothing has happened to foreign exchange. So I think it's just a means of justifying the various options, the various prices that people fix. And in actual sense, if you look at it, there is no justification. There is no justification. But people are using it just so that they can get the best prices. And we are doing it to ourselves. You know, we Nigerians are doing it to ourselves in various sectors. And of course, the normal thing, the easiest thing to do whenever this thing happens is to blame government, whereas it's not government. And even the issue, which some people have spoken about yesterday, I listened, about trying to merge the two rates. You know, for as long as government tries, this has been done many times, you know, trying to merge the rates or to cover the differential, because the differential is giving, some speculators, you know, advantage, because there is differential to round trip or something like that, buy from official rate, find a way of bringing it back and then selling it in black market rate. But as long as you try to close that gap, the more you close it, the more it widens again. The more you close it, the more it widens again. If central bank should wake up today and say, okay, we are selling dollars at 505 naira to a dollar, the next thing, the black market will shift to 600 naira, or 550 naira, and things like that. It's a moving decimal. It's a matter of demand and supply. This is the real long-term solution is for us to really be export-oriented, to operate towards, you know, and not relying on oil alone, diversifying the economy. This has been done. You know, substantial achievement has been made, really. But, you know, because of our size, because of our quantum, because of our test, unfortunately, we have not made enough strides, you know, in that direction.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Ango. Let's come back to the studio. He described it as a moving decimal. How can we begin to stabilize the dollar so that our economy can grow?
A moving target as well.
Yes, a moving target.
Yeah, the key issue here is dollar supply. We just don't have enough of it. But that's number one. But there's an insatiable desire for that dollar, which plays out in dollarization of our economy. There is an increasing tendency to dollarize the economy. People are much more confident of handling and holding the dollar. And those CBN has fought this many times in the past. But that's when dollar is the crux, then speculation sits in. And speculation does far more damage because politicians want to hold the dollar. If people prefer to be settled in dollar, even when you are giving bribe, they tell they don't want those bags of naira, bring me dollar. Now it shows that dollar has taken precedence over any other means of our own primary means of exchange. And we don't have enough of it. Now the second thing also is there are so many other hostages to our story that even the preponderance of foreign debts means you have to service them with dollars as well. And you know it's prioritized. We haven't defaulted in any way in our repayment. It's one of those no-go areas. We haven't defaulted, and that has been very helpful to Nigeria because if you default, you know what happens. The fallout on rating, the fallout on increased the premium on the interest rates, all kinds of things will kick in. So it's part of the mix. Then, of course, the structure, there's a structural issue where over 80% of our manufacturing capacity is persistently depending on imported raw materials. And I haven't actually seen that we are beginning to address that, to reduce that. You know, when Obasanjo was there, remember about the bread. He had to push for cassava to be incorporated in bread, about 10% to 20%. The beer production, barley, you had sweet sorghum going. So you saw that push to conserve and bring in more of our, integrate some of our more local material. But that, we need to start looking at that again, you know. And then, of course, you say, why are we not earning enough money? Even when the oil price is going on, crude oil going higher and higher, over $70, you still haven't seen the money in excess crude account, and you haven't seen accretion into the reserves. Now, that tells you another story. But you know, there are two sides to that story, because I know that some of that money still finds its way into subsidizing petrol and all of that. And if you remove it overnight, inflation impact will come in, because if suddenly we buy petrol or diesel at 300 naira, there will be a knock-on effect on transportation costs. There's a knock-on effect. So inflation will also take a dive. So we will let that sleeping dog lie for the moment. So there are many hostages to this whole story about forex instability. But then, one would say that the ability for them to continue to purchase the dollar means that we need to do a bit more on tightening the liquidity. And CBN is doing that, as you saw, in activities on the open market operation, and you saw more activity. Government is also active in the market, selling treasury bills. So there is that activity that are trying to mop up liquidity to reduce the cash available for us to buy and trade with this dollar. But what you can't stop today is the arbitrage. As long as you have those two rates, there's an arbitrage. So there's a revenue earning opportunity. And they capitalize on it. And look at what the Prof was saying about, which is correct. People still choose, the narrative that suits them. Any small change they say is because it's because they bought dollar at 500. And you can't enter into price control because of this. To say, well, we supplied you. Citibank cannot say, I supplied you $200 million to import raw material. Why are you charging this? You can't get into that territory.
Why?
Instead, we go into competition to ensure that we can increase the competitiveness of our industry to be able to export more. Because when you export more, of course, you earn more foreign exchange. And then, of course, there are a lot of macro-prudential measures going on right now around the dollar. You can't put the dollar into some dollar domiciliary account. You can't take out, you can't transfer. So there are a lot of macro-prudential measures, taking. But these are stopgap measures. So in the long term, it is about our ability to get more dollars. And also, why don't we deepen the use of our, we had this currency swap with China, which should also help us more, because a lot of our imports are actually coming from China. So how don't we deepen that swap so that we de-emphasize the use of the pressure on the use of dollar? So I think that's some of those, and there are options.
Since most of the things we get is from China.
It's from China, yeah.
Okay, Prof, if we'll return to you, you'll drill into some of the issues that you have already highlighted. Elijah Amino Guadabe, amongst the factors you indicated as being responsible for the current parallel market rate of the Naira, according to you, is hot money in circulation. I'm just wondering, how does the average Nigerian, for instance, who is at the receiving end of the frequent price increases on the alibi of the current exchange rate of the Naira, understand that there's hot money in circulation when the general complaint is that there's no money in town?
Money supply, it depends on how you look at it, M1, M2. I quite believe the country is not broke, even as we are now. There is still a lot of activities going on. We've been seeing expenses that have been carried on, and it's in billions of naira, that also influence the exchange rate. So also, like the last speaker have said, you find that politician will tell you, give me dollar, not naira. So these are issues that are germane and of concern. Then, yes, despite the inflation, for instance, if you look at the neighboring economies of Nigeria, even their letter of credit is being sourced. The dollar used in those countries is being sourced from Nigeria. So there is a lot of pressure. We've seen the porousness of our own borders allow money travel fast than anything. As I'm here now, I can talk about money in UK, I can talk about money in UAE, I can talk about money in London. So this is the speed of money. And that is why this circulation of hot money is injurious to the exchange rate of the country. So it's very, very important. We, like the last speaker said, liquidity mop up. CBN is trying its best to see that they have mop up liquidity in various forms to ensure that the too much naira we are seeing in the economy, despite the narration that yes, there is no money, but I believe it depends from the angle you are looking at it. There are places that there is money, yes, there are places there is no money. Unfortunately, a lot of Nigerians are suffering because of the dwindling economy, unemployment as a result of all these fundamentals. But honestly, it's a very big issue, and I think the CBN is also looking into it. There is a lot of many ways that this money comes into this country, and at the end of the day, is even freighted out. So this is a very, very big issue that is affecting, and like I said, porous borders, you find out there is illegal evacuation of this currency going to Dubai, going to China, and what have you. So it's really a big issue and a big concern.
Thank you very much, Alhaji Aminu Gwadabe. Professor Yushau Ango, again, I want to pose the same question to you. I mean, is there really hot money in circulation? If you say hot money, or should we say hot money in limited circulation? When everyone else is complaining that there's no money in town, purchasing power is diminishing quite rapidly. That's one leg of the question. Second leg is, we say, okay, we have to boost our exports so that we can earn forex. How then do we account for the diaspora remittances running into, in some cases, billions of dollars? So what impact do those remittances have on our exchange rate versus the figures that we are seeing now, where the parallel rate is over 500 naira? The one US dollar, the British pound, I understand, is around about 700 or thereabout. So how do you understand all of this miasma of issues around the foreign exchange rate?
Alhaji Aminu Godebe will be better at explaining what this hot money is all about. But I believe there are monies, the problem in Nigeria is certainly at the low level, there is no money, with the average, the poor persons. But at the high level, at the high end of the market, obviously there is money. And like also he said, some of them are running to safety. Given the security situation, given the situations, they just want to be safer. They felt it's better to have their monies in foreign exchange. Now that there is not even too much troubles, like before, ordinarily one would have thought that there won't be too much demand. But another issue which probably has not been given adequate attention is the fact that this inflation, these exchange rate issues, have all of them affected also by what happened in 2019, 2020, the COVID-19 issue. Those things and the fact that we entered into recession somehow will manifest naturally. Whether we like it or not, it will manifest in inflation at the end of the day. We are lucky that we did not run into the problem of hunger and too much of it, it was not a headline issue. But the impact of COVID is still with us, and it's reflecting also in this issue of foreign exchange and this issue of inflation. Now, the remittances that we receive from diaspora, I don't have the latest figures. I don't know what happened to it during the COVID era. It certainly will have reduced. But the remittances are huge, from what I saw in the previous years. And if it continues to grow at this level, then there is a likelihood that it may even surpass the so-called oil wealth that we receive in this country. However, what we should always take into cognizance is the fact that we are growing. We are 207 million. We are likely going to be 400 million by the year 2050, based on projections. We are growing rapidly. Our requests, our demands are increasing. So even though the revenue is also increasing, including, incidentally, the non-oil export is also contributing hugely, but it's yet to make, to meet up with the demand. And especially it's difficult to meet demand when people are running to safety. When people are running, they just want to hold on to a currency that they felt will be stable. There won't be any problem. Whatever happens, at least that currency is stable. When people are running to that, hardly will any money, however much it is, be sufficient, because it's a matter of speculation. It's not really based on real demand. If it were based on real demand, I think sincerely we have made so much progress in terms of remittances, in terms of non-oil exports, in terms of even food sufficiency. All those are real huge achievements. And even in terms of even manufacturers' contribution to GDP, it's improving. If you look at it in the last few years, it's improving. So manufacturing is waking up, unlike what it was in the previous years. But our growth in terms of population and then the fact that people are running to safety is not helping matters in this regard.
Professor Ishao Ango, let's now come back to the studio. Professor Ken Efe, he has talked about the fast-growing population here in Nigeria, and the exchange rate definitely affects manufacturers, and in the long run affects the consumer, because we're a consumer nation. How can we, in a way, balance it so that manufacturers get these dollars the way it should be gotten from the banks at the right price? Because if they buy it from the parallel market, definitely if I go to the market, I'll buy whatever I'm buying at triple the price, and it affects me as a person. So how can we sort of balance it so that the end consumer will not suffer the cascading effect of the exchange rate on manufacturers?
When Wadebe talked about hot money,
yes,
you could be looking at the velocity of the money or the temperature of the money. But there's one aspect of
hot.
I know it's hot.
It's
so
hot.
The one aspect of that hot money story is foreign portfolio investors, which started disappearing from the second quarter of 2020 because of COVID. So a lot of them are out of the market completely, and it's a huge number, into billions. And it's very important because even though they don't stay there for a long time, but they are coming and going, helps us temporarily deal with the issue of forex stability and availability. Then, of course, back to the question about the population. You see, Nigeria is not feeding 208 million people. No, we are feeding 300 million people, because a lot of the Francophone countries surrounding Nigeria, Niger, Mali, Chad, northern Cameroon, and south, and northern, are actually heavily importing our produce. So a lot of our produce are not even available for export, because at those northern frontiers, they are heavily importing our produce. And the reason is this. The currency, the CFA currency, one naira was buying 3 in 2014. But 1 naira is only buying 1.2 now, or 1.3, which means to them is about 67% devaluation. But their own currency is nothing to write home about, because it's an artificial value. The Nigerian value is always the same, because it responds to what happens today and tomorrow in the market. But theirs is not. It's pegged to euro, and their foreign reserves are bound to maintain that value. So that value stays constantly. It is not real. So you can't actually, but the fact of the matter is, to them, they are seeing our produce cheap, so they are importing them. And they are not settling in dollar. They are settling with our own naira as well. So we can't even get dollar from there, because the ECOWAS treaty allows free movement of those goods and services, and at the primary level without paying duty, no quota, everything. But if we increase value addition, then we will bring those markets under regulation, because now you can pay duties, and then you can actually, so it comes in, unless they apply for ECOWAS Trade Liberation Scheme, ETLS. So that's a challenge that we have at that frontier. But then, when there is pressure, when you break down inflation statistics, you will actually see how that plays out. Why the produce at the top end of the north coming down to the south, 1 ton of grain you are moving down to the south costs you between 75,000 naira to 100,000 naira to transport it down. Not because the fuel price has gone up, no, it hasn't, but the transportation cost is more to do with security. They can no longer do overnight, 24-hour drive all the way. They will have to stop somewhere because they wait for a journey of 1 day now becomes 3 days. Its cost. It triples and doubles the price. So you've got all that, security playing in, population differentials are playing in, what you are producing is not actually going out to earn you dollar. But there is growth in the agricultural GDP. You've seen it, 2.28. The other time it was 3.6. You could see effort, even despite the shrinking agroecological footprint caused by also security issues around the city. So people are still pouring in money, CBN, pouring in money on making sure that there's mechanization.
Is the money going to the right farmers, or the money is going to, in some cases, as it has been alleged, political farmers?
I'm not sure about this because we know that over 3 million farmers have actually accessed money from Anchor Borrowers Program. We know that over 3 million tons of rice has been produced. I mean, this is a radical change from what we were seeing. We were virtually importing every rice we were eating.
But still, rice
but
is
now
expensive.
the story has changed a bit in our favor. Even though there's still hoarding of goods and things, there are all sorts of asymmetries going on. But the fact of the matter is that over 3 million farmers have accessed credit without collateral, and it is continuing. What we now need is to strengthen that linkage so that a lot of it will enter into export train heading out. And that means quality infrastructure have to be laid out. It means that processing, value addition, progressive have to take place. So there's a lot of work there to actually make sure that we can kiss goodbye to the foreign exchange problem that we are having.
Okay. Well, Professor Kenife, thank you. I want to go back to Professor Yushua Ango. Professor Yushua Ango, I mean, for those of us who have followed the fate of the Naira, particularly since the introduction of the second-tier foreign exchange market in 1986, September 1986, by the time we got into the early 90s, we started hearing all kinds of excuses as to why the Naira was the way it was. In fact, during that first transaction in 1986, the Naira, which used to exchange for just about $1.50, became 1 Naira to $3 US. Well, it stayed stable for a while, and then you then started having all the changes. We keep hearing all of these arguments. The people will tell you, the economists or financial experts will tell you about parity ratio, all these stories about we are not producing enough, we are import dependent, we are not exporting enough, and yet, from what we are hearing, a lot of the population in West Africa depends on us. So if that is not export, what is it? And is there any way that we can maximize this? The same story you will hear about fuel. That fuel, if you have 10 million liters that will come into the country, maybe 10% or 20% of it will also go out. So we are the ones spending our own dollars, to import these things in the first instance. We claim that we are import dependent, but in the meantime, you have other countries that are also relying on us. How do we understand all of this? When they buy the fuel, when the fuel goes to neighboring country, whether it's Benin Republic or Cameroon or Niger or Burkina Faso, what do they pay us in sand?
Will pay us in CFA. The economies of West African states in that regard are somehow assimilated in the sense that certainly, like Prof said, a lot of trade takes place, especially in terms of grains. I come from a village where there is a market that people come all the way, from, including Mali, or Senegal, to buy some of the crops there, so we know that there is exchange. But in the same way, We also buy a lot of things from those areas. A lot of what we have as cattle here, actually not Nigerian cattle. A lot of the rams and all that are also not Nigerian. So, and then also a lot of the beans and things like that. We get a lot of things from them. They get a lot of things from us. Unfortunately, very informal ways. Perhaps, definitely when they are coming in, they can come and pay in Naira. But how did they get the Naira? Along the line, there must have been an exchange informally between Naira and Sefa. This is happening. And unfortunately, a lot has to do with the way we structured our country right from the beginning. Our foreign relations, our foreign policy right from independence was that of, was Afrocentric and is still Afrocentric. And we have remained largely, the big brother, if you like, big brother in the sense of generosity, not even in the sense of loading it over anybody. To the extent that, small neighbors, can do all sorts of untoward things towards us and get away with it. That was the way we operated. Unfortunately, if we let our borders to be porous, we had no controls, and they have control. They have discipline in their own countries. We cannot blame them for it. So the reality, like Prof said, is quite a lot of what we produce here, or what we even import here, including petroleum that we import now, some of it ends up there. Right now, most of these countries, for example, are selling petrol at 400 Naira or thereabout. We are selling at 160 something Naira here. And so they are benefiting from it because we are the one that allowed it to happen. Nobody can do it for us. We are the one that open ourselves and open our borders to that extent. I'm just hoping and praying, for this huge refinery to start work, and we're hoping it will start next year. That will even reduce the quantum of imports, official imports, into Nigeria. That alone will give Naira some respite. So we are hoping for that, but sincerely, there is an issue of patriotism. We can only be patriotic. If we want to defend our country, we defend our country. If we have national interest, we have national interest. There is an issue of patriotism. We can only be patriotic. If we want to defend our country, we defend our
Okay, it seems that we have a slight problem from our Kaduna Network Center. Let's now join Aminu Gwadabe in Lagos. As the acting president of the Association of Bureau de Change in Nigeria, there's definitely a problem there because Nigerians acquiring or accessing to dollars in the parallel market is becoming quite a difficult task. So if government is trying through economic policies to ensure that this is stabilized and balanced well, what are you doing on your part to ensure that Nigerians who need these dollars have access to it and at a favorable price at that matter?
A self-regulatory organization, one of our major roles, like you said, is to help the Central Bank of Nigeria to stabilize the exchange rate. This we have been achieving some strategic roles with them right from 2006 when we witnessed this volatility, and the window was opened then by the governor, Professor Charles Soludo, where the BDC came in and more like do the magic. The same thing in 2016 when we have a recession also, where we see volatility. The governor also encouraged the BDC to be in the market with that window. The whole purpose of the BDC is to ensure that they suppress the black market rate. So, but due to the issue of supply, like Prof have said, as a main issue, is the reason we are seeing this. The exchange rate continued to be stable from 2016 till about 2020, early January, before the COVID. So this is where we found the problem. The supply reduced drastically even to the BDC subsector. We used to have an average of $75,000 per week, and now we are doing less than even 30%, which is about 20,000 per week. So you can see there is a lot of shortage, squeeze in the market, liquidity squeeze. So that has been a constraint to ensuring the stability or achieving that role. But it's not bad. The bubble is going to burst. That I can assure people. We have been talking to our members that the members of the public should go to their offices and do their official transactions, which is the business traveling allowance, $4,000. $5,000. Personal traveling allowance, $4,000. Medical, $5,000. School fees, $5,000. So these are our scope of transactions. And I'm using this medium to please whoever that goes into any BDC office and with his genuine documentation. The problem is that Nigerians don't even want any transactions that will give them a tracing. People prefer to go to the man in the street that will not ask them, where is your BVN number, where is your passport, where is your ticket. They feel they don't want to be exposed to that kind of environment. So this is what we are saying. But it's not an excuse. Like I said, we are using this platform to inform Nigerians that the BDC is still assessing the central bank window to ensure that there is liquidity in the market. And we are training our members to informing them the danger, because many of us have been penalized due to the non-compliance to rules and regulation. So we've been training our members, and the CBN is also heavy on any infractions. About almost BDCs were penalized with 5 million naira last year, and then still other are on PND. So we have been having a lot of collaboration with the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, to ensure that there is stability in the market. And we will continue to give our best, more especially to our regulator and the security agencies who have been exchanging good information on how we can achieve this objective. The bottom line, like Prof said, is about greed and selfishness. It's not all about me. So this is the problem. We need to have a change of mindset that we should be patriotic. We should love the country, because that is key. That is fundamental. It's gamen. Let us not continue to be wasted generation. It's not good. Nations are built by their own people. Not any other person can come into this country and develop our economy. We are going to develop this country. So it's gamen. We should be patriotic to ourselves, to the country, so that we can be in that position. Nigeria is in a very, very vintage position in the world. In fact, if you look at the world map, one of my geography lecturer was saying, we're at the heart of the world. We're at the center. So we have a lot of advantage to ensure that we don't face all these volatility issues. Secondly, you raised the point of diaspora remittances. Ironically, it's not coming as expected due to some certain issues over there too. The CBN have been trying to even give incentive to the receivers here, whereby you have 5 naira per dollar when you go and send your money through the IMTOs. But honestly, there's still monopoly. And until that monopoly is broken, that's when we will be able to see the flow of the diaspora remittances. The operators of IMTOs are saying the fixed versus, do we call it black market rate, is the reason why they cannot continue to bring in their money into this country. You find that people have now come to even establish companies whereby they are the ones that are utilizing the bulk of the diaspora remittances instead of coming into this country. So we have to address that. The CBN is trying to ensure that they close the gap between the parallel and the official market. But like we have heard this morning, most of the time they want to close it, the gap, you find that is going. And there is no country that operates a free float. No country that operates a free float exchange rate regime. It has to be a managed float. the central bank have been trying to see that they came in with different market to manage the exchange rate. The BDC window is one of them. The I&E window is one of them. You see, it's only in Nigeria you find even banks going to their central bank, sourcing money for their customers. This is, something that the model should be changed. Banks should be made to be productive, even in terms of earning foreign exchange, by ensuring that they support businesses that will bring export proceeds into their coffers and use it to also pay for import bills. These are some of the things that we should be doing. Then, diversification of our economy. No doubt about it, we have been operating a monocultural economy whereby the main source of income is the oil. And just many times, like the last COVID-19, whereby we are even begging people to take our cargoes on the sea because there is no buyer. So that is an eye-opener for us now to really go into export and solid minerals. I'm happy some stakeholders like Lagos Commodity Exchange, they are coming with programs on how to even finance solid minerals. These are the things, resources that the country is being blessed. So we have to look into it. Then in the long run, which is more expensive, is import substitution. We have been trying to do that even in terms of the petroleum product that we are seeing now with Dangote refinery. But the marginal cost of replacement is more in agriculture. It's low in agricultural products. So we need to focus our backward integration linkages into the agricultural sector. It's unfortunate. People are in technology revolution, is it fourth revolution? And we are still grappling to even move from agricultural to manufacture. So we need to really draw back our policies, look at them, and see the right way to do. I still believe putting more emphasis, like the Central Bank of Nigeria is doing in terms of farming, supporting agriculture. What is lacking is agro-entrepreneurship. So we need to develop people. We see farming, we see agriculture as a total business. The production, the manufacturing, the packaging, all as a whole. Instead of seeing it as a subsistence living, whereby you just go and farm for you to feed your family. That is the most farming activities that is happening in the north. So we need to expand that horizon. It's very, very important. And as we go in, and as I said, it's a question of time. The bubble will burst. All this arbitrage that we have been seeing is going to stop. It's not going to continue because we are not going to remain like this. Nigeria is a country that all the time, if the crisis we are seeing in Nigeria is happening in other countries, honestly, that country will not survive. So we should thank God. And also, most of Nigerians, they are prayerful, and I'm sure we are going to see the end of this volatility. We are going to go back to normal. All the parameters going forward look good. By next year, we stop importation of petroleum product, which is engulfing a lot of our own dwindling reserve. Also, in agriculture, in terms of rice, a lot of improvement have been recorded there. With the ACTF, this Africa Continental Trade Agreement, I also think Nigeria is going to benefit a lot as the giant of Africa in terms of export. So it's good. We have been seeing infrastructural development in terms of roads, railway, that we aid transportation of goods and services. So I have hope, and the future is going to be bright. And for those in speculation, I still advise you desist from it, because the governor, like I've always tell us, those involved will burn their fingers.
So much, Aminu Gwadebe, you've raised a lot of pertinent questions that we would like to touch on before the program ends, but we'll take a break right now. When we return, our conversation will continue.
Still Good Morning Nigeria, and we're live on NTS Network Service. All our three guests are still with us. Yusuf Ango, a professor from our Kaduna Network Center, Alhaji Aminu Gwadabe, who is the acting president of the Forex dealers in the country. We're still with us from our Lagos Network Center. And here in the Abuja studios, we still have Professor Ken Ife. Professor Ken Ife, Well, we're on the home stretch again, just as we did yesterday. A number of issues are coming up. These are matters that are very critical that you three guests are raising this morning. There are 2 points that Alhaji Aminu Gwadabe raised that I would like you to respond to. One, we're talking about the seepage of diaspora remittances into the economy and what impact that might make, because they are not bringing in local currency, they are bringing in hard currency. So if simple economics will tell you demand and supply, so if the supply is coming in and it runs into billions of dollars per annum, just let's forget last year. Even before last year, we were having quite some huge supplies. We know that there has been a shortfall on account of what has happened as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. But Gwadabe says that it appears that there are some middlemen who are hijacking this and not allowing percolation into the larger economy. What can be done with regard to that? That's one. But the other critical point that he also raised is to say banks themselves should stop going to the central bank for dollars. Why is it that banks, in terms of their activities, cannot be recipients of export proceeds? You know, we have raised this issue here on Good Morning Nigeria with you, Professor Kenife. Yes. Why are banks not engaging in real banking business, financing reproductive activities that will earn, if it is local activity, earn naira, if it is foreign activity, earn forex, and you receive this one. When customers come to you, you also sell. Everybody, I don't know how many banks there, everybody rushing every week to go to the central bank for money, and this is the cost of round tripping, and we have seen this for over 30 years. I mean, usual angle has been in the banking sector.
Correct. Well, let me start with that and go to the first one, which is diaspora remittance. You remember in 2015-16 when CBN clamped down on 32 items or so, and I defended that action because I challenged all the protagonists.
41 items.
I said, I challenged them. I said, tell me any bilateral agreement, trade agreement, multilateral trade agreement from WTO and the plurilateral trade agreement that says that a central bank has to provide money for importation of product. There's none. So why are we lording it over the central bank? Why is it that we've just made central bank the centerpiece of all this importation and exportation? It shouldn't be the case. In London, most time when I import things, I just go to my commercial bank and they provide me the currency. They've never ever had to go to Bank of England for looking for those currencies. So I think we need to deal with this. And also there are banks that are actually beginning to wake up, because I, for one, I have been a guest speaker several times to Lagos Business School, working with Fidelity Bank and Export Promotion Council. So I go to speak on export compliance in Lagos and in Kanu and all that. So you can actually see a bank that is making an effort. And I've also been to train 600 people, exporters for Lagos State on export of coconut and textile and all that. Also with these 2-3 people that I mentioned. So there is an effort, but it shouldn't be confined to one or two. All of them should be involved in this business. And secondly, every bank should have a business advisor in every branch, so that when people come, they talk to them, go out and visit them in their places. We don't have that. Every branch should have it. Then this coming to your diaspora remittance, there's heavy arbitrage that is going on there. And we've known this for long. And CBN has actually taken action in the middle of last year. What was going on is that we have IMTOs, International Money Transfer Organizations, that are sitting there collecting the dollars from our diaspora and then paying out in Naira. And then so the CBN stepped in and said, no, pay these monies into dollar domiciliary accounts. And then let them have the choice of how they want to dispense their dollars. He gave that directive. Many of them didn't comply, and CBN went rough with them. And then actually had to close their Naira accounts, the IMTO Naira account, which was what was making them hold on to this. So there's been, and then migrated to incentivizing diaspora to use the channels and get extra 4 or 5 Naira per dollar. So there's an action going on there, but it tells you the scale of the challenge that we have there. So why do we have this? This continues. And, these guys, for you to deal, CBN has to have an acrobatic mentality to deal with these people. You follow in here, they plug this, and look at even macro-prudential measures. The ones I've just been saying to you about dollar. It's the same thing. They are just moving it, and that's fighting. But this shouldn't be the case. And we should have a longer-term solution to this by opening up all other avenues of raising dollar revenue and also reducing the pressure that dollar has on our import activity by doing more with the...
Prof, I know that my colleague is going to ask this question. You know, from your gesticulation, you call it acrobatics, the CBN as a regulator is trying. If these activities amount to economic sabotage, is an entity like the EFCC ill-equipped?
ICPC.
Is it ill-equipped to say, look, we're going to do a track down and then make a scapegoat of one or two persons so that everybody will now know, oh, that this is not just business?
As usual.
Yeah. So we have a National Intelligence Agency, that's a financial intelligence unit,
NFI.
and CBN doesn't lack the power to take action. It does take action when it wants to. Because I've actually sat in a meeting where the CBN governor warned the importers of oil and all these textiles. I know all of you. If you try this again, I'll blacklist you, I'll tag you. He knows, the information is there. But you have to take these things one at a time. But it's not for lack of power. It has the power to do it. And I've even sat in a room in the CBN where all the importers of, the uniformed officers, the Air Force, the Navy, the Youth Corps, all of them, he sat on one side, and then all the manufacturers of garments sat on the other side. And he said to them, look, you know what? According to the presidential directive, I'm not going to give you dollars anymore for importing all these textiles. You're going to do business with these people. Tell me why you can't do business. They say, well, quality standard. They say, but I can meet your quality standard. All right, I'm going to put money on cotton value chain, entire end-to-end. They put money for billions of naira for them to produce cotton. The engineers were funded, and then the government were paid. So they're beginning to so they have the power. When they want to utilize it, they have the power. Even down to spraying money in the market, they have the power. It's all in their mandate.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Ken. Let's now join Yushua Ango in Kaduna. They said the CBN needs to have acrobatic capacity. Now, let's have your views on banks sourcing and not from the CBN, sourcing dollars and not from the CBN. Let's have your comments on that.
What we have had, or what we still have in Nigeria, Nigerian economy generally, is a Father Christmas economy in many respects. We have been used to be subsidized. Banks have been subsidized. Everybody has been subsidized. But I think I've spoken here many times about the quantum of subsidy that goes to banking in particular. It's too much. Take, for example, now banks' balance sheets today are in trillions of naira. Some of them have balance sheets that's as big or bigger than the national budget of Nigeria. Now, of course, the government doesn't want these banks to fail, because if they fail, it has ripple effects on the whole economy. But, in that attempt, a company, asset management company of Nigeria was set up to manage bad debts, of banks. Now, these are there, and quite a number of them will go into some industries. They'll go and invest in certain sectors. They just move in with the currents. When a particular sector is doing very well, all the banks will just go and lend into those, and they will lend hugely. And when they lose money hugely, AMSCON, the asset management company of Nigeria, will just absorb this, and nobody gets punished. Nobody gets punished, nobody gets penalized. In a rare occasions, you disband the board, you remove the directors, and that is all. All the losses. That's the same way we have been managing foreign exchange as far as banks are concerned. The point has been made that everywhere else, banks do not rush, they don't run to the central bank to look for dollar to do business. We are so laid back, we are so used to Father Christmas mentality. Banks will not be innovative enough, they will not be ingenious, they will not want to create export market, they will rather sit down, go cap in hand to central bank, every time they will get this. So what we need sincerely is a real major structural change. And I hope if we can do this with the coming of the Dangote refinery, that will reduce at least 1/4 of the imports. Let central bank begin, even though they have done it many times, they have actually pushed banks to source for their foreign exchange. They have encouraged this issue of import and export window, so that exporters can have maintained their use and utilize their money. They have done everything, but I think, they are not pushing hard enough. I think, that mentality, that thinking, that our Father Christmas approach is still what is happening. Just like what is happening, like I said, in every sector. But in banking in particular, given the size of banking business, given the significance of the banking business, I think we need to go with the best practice globally. And I think the best time is now. We don't have enough resources. Let central bank manage our foreign reserves. Let them manage the economy. Let them manage the monetary policy. Let them handle it very well. They have done very well in intervening in agriculture and other sectors of the economy. Their developmental objectives are coming out very well. I think let them do that. And then let us encourage the banks, to source for foreign exchange. They can do it. They have the capacity, but they are just laid back because they know they can always get it from Central Bank of Nigeria.
Wow. Professor Yusuf Ango, thank you very much there for your comments. Back to Alhaji Aminu Gwadabe in Lagos. I'm probably not alone in assuming that many Nigerians do not know the difference between a bureau de change, that's a BDC, and then the malam that is on the street hawking dollars and also buy dollars from you, if you intend to sell. Earlier you were saying that, look, if people want to avoid speculation, go to the BDC or go to your banks for transactions. How does the potential patron differentiate between a BDC and those malams? Here in Abuja, where we are, everybody knows where Zone 4 is. In Lagos, where you are there, I'm sure one or two hotels that are close by there, you see them there. You go one or two hotels in between where you are located in our office in Lagos. You see them on Broad Street, you see them at the local airport, you also see them. Allen Avenue, you see them. So how do you differentiate between a BDC and a malam who is hawking dollars?
The concept of licensing bureau de change is to formalize that informal market so that the central bank will be able to track and capture transactions that is outside its own purview. And for you to get a license, there are conditions precedent upon getting that license. One, you have to be a registered entity with Corporate Affairs Commission. You have to have an office location, very, very gamen, which the Central Bank of Nigeria, before even issuing a license, will come and inspect that office. Then you are also having some obligations in terms of renditions of returns to the Central Bank of Nigeria and then the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit. You cannot be operating on the street and you call yourself a licensed bureau de change. So this is a misnomer. Unfortunately, that market has been developed for a very long time. So the CBN is trying all it could to see that they formalize by issuing licenses to ensure that they reduce the impact of the parallel market operators. But like I've said, it's a market that has been developed over a long time, and people have been there for many years as their means of livelihood. But that is not enough justification to continue to allow its existence. However, like I said, we are licensed with the Central Bank of Nigeria. We also pay our revenue to federal inland revenue and state revenue. Our income taxes also paid by our members and staff. So these are some of the obligations that clearly separated us from a parallel market operators that is not licensed, is not incorporated, he have no office. For God's sake, we are always advising Nigerians, go and conduct your foreign exchange need inside a bureau de change office. And whereby you found infractions, the CBN have in many occasions given numbers, we too have been doing that. By next week, we are coming out with jingles in both the TV, radios, newspapers, so that we can continue to enlighten the public, patronize the license bureau de change. And we need also support the media, so as you continue to enlighten Nigerians that these BDCs are all over. We're about 5,000 plus in the country. Every nooks and corner of this country, the bureau de change are there. We are more convenient. So people should begin to have that attitude of conducting their transaction, not for you to go to Zone 4, for you to come to Ikeja Airport, inside your car, you want to exchange, you want to do transactions. So these are attitudes that we are calling on Nigerians. Identify a licensed bureau de change. We came up with a exchange rate platform that is called NigeriaBDCs.com. If you go into that platform, you will see all the licensed bureau de change in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you, Aminu Gwedebe. We are really running out of time. We have to come back to the studio to get the, the closing comment of Professor Ken Efe. How do we deal with these economic challenges? 30 seconds, briefly.
Well, inflation has loomed very, very high. And remember that there are two sides of that equation. A lot of structural factors aggravated by security, there are money supply related issues. And when you come to money supply related issues, there's forex supply and there's domestic money supply. CBN is wrapping that up by restraining liquidity through their operations, and then the whole confusion around forex supply is what we spend the whole of this money doing. And that is a moving target. There's so many things that are impacting on that. And we know that speculation sits very, very high in that agenda, and that's why dollarization. So the jury is out on this. And the good news, of course, is that the economy is gradually recovering. Inflation is tempering a little bit. And we just hope that no adverse action, because we're in a time of stagflation, no adverse action will aggravate this and lose what we have gained.
We hope so, and we pray it's sustained. Professor Ken Ife, economic policy analyst, thank you so much for your insight into this topic today on Good Morning Nigeria. And from our Kaduna Network Center, Professor Yushau Ango, Dean, School of Postgraduate Studies and Professor of Finance and Entrepreneurship, Kaduna State University. He was also a banker. He joined us from Kaduna. Thank you so much. And Aminu Gwedebe, Acting President, Association of Bureaus de Change. Thank you so much for your insight on Good Morning Nigeria.
All right, so that's it on the program for today. We appreciate your tuning in. Remember to join us again tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning. Until then, I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Juma Yusuf. Do have a great day.